Welcome back to Lawrence Explained Online Academic Tuition. In this video I'm going to take a look at the characters of Eric and Gerald in the play An Inspector Calls. So let's look at Eric first of all, just have a little bit of a run through of his character. One of the things to point out about Eric is he clearly lives, in the shadow of Mr. Burling. He is not really an independent person in any way. He's not an independent thinker, kind of copies his father's thoughts, looks up to his father. He's not independent in his career. He works in his family business, and he's very much in the shadow of his father, who is a very domineering character who also has a lot of economic and social status within the local community. So that's the first thing to note about Eric. He's obviously grown up in some privilege as well, substantial privilege. Obviously both his parents are well-to-do. He has a drink problem. Early in the play, Sheila says, Eric, you're squiffy, meaning you've had too much to drink. This is a feature throughout the play. It's pretty consistent throughout the play that Eric's drinking problem is referenced over and over again. So he has an addiction problem. He is essentially an alcoholic. So certainly, there's a significant problem he has here, and he's also the father of Eva Smith's child. He certainly has his flaws as a character. Seems to be a slightly underdeveloped person overall, lacking in independence, maybe lacking in direction. His relationship with Eva Smith is purely a sexual relationship, and he ends up being the father of her child. Now, the inspector reprimands Eric for this, quite severely, saying, he used I can't remember the term that he used, but he basically says, you used her like an animal, or something along those lines. And whilst, it may be true Eric did not have a long-term plan for his relationship with Eva Smith, it also shouldn't be overlooked that this was entirely consensual. Eva Smith willingly went to bed with him, had a sexual relationship with him. She wasn't coerced into anything. This is completely consensual. And I think that's something that's overlooked, and it's overlooked by the inspector as well. Again, it's it's this patronizing misogyny that Eva Smith couldn't possibly have had any agency or direction or decision making of her own. She was just the will of of the boys like Eric and Gerald. It's bizarre, to be honest with you, because it doesn't fit with Eva Smith's early character at all as this rebellious leader of a workers' revolt. So that part of the play is obviously highly unrealistic, doesn't really seem to make much sense, and I think it betrays a level of misogyny of the inspector, possibly Priestley as well, to be honest with you, a level of a kind of patronizing misogyny, because it's clear that this relationship between them was consensual. That doesn't mean it's the most intelligent thing for them in the world to have done, given that this is like the early 20th century, and obviously it's resulted in a pregnancy that was not wanted or planned. That's the character of Eric. Overall, seems to be, I think, probably a fairly weak character, still quite immature, and really has a lot to learn and a lot of growing up to do, essentially. Eva Smith characterizes him as a drinker, when Eva goes to see Mrs. Burling, she says, the father's a drinker and he's a bit wild and immature, he's just not suitable to be the father. And that is A, it's pretty damning, and B, it's also true as well. So Eric's character is, highly flawed. Let's move on to Gerald. So Gerald obviously has a more of a romantic relationship with Eva Smith, and his position is an interesting one, because obviously he's engaged, so he is breaking his engagement, the terms of his engagement, by having a relationship with Eva Smith. So on that front, he's definitely a guilty party. He's already engaged to Sheila, obviously, and they have plans to be married. And then he meets Eva Smith and basically falls for her, and has this kind of romance with her. Now, in the case of Gerald, he actually does treat her quite well. Like, he's at strains to point out that he sort of doesn't initially. It's not all just about the kind of physical attraction to begin with. He's got an admiration for Eva, and when they are together, he does at least make quite a bit of attempt to assist her in her life and so on. And I suppose she looks up to him as a little bit of a savior in a way, which probably isn't the most healthy dynamic for their relationship. But equally, it's not the most unhealthy either. Like, it's not a good dynamic, but there's certainly no malice on the part of Gerald towards Eva Smith, and they have, quite a good relationship. I think he has a lot of feeling for her. That's pretty evident, and she obviously maybe has more feelings towards him. But yeah, it is essentially just a kind of fairly normal relationship, which doesn't go the full route of going down the route of a marriage and a long happy ever after. But it is something of a kind of fruitful relationship. The only really big cloud over it is the fact that Gerald is obviously engaged. So of all of the characters, it's probably Gerald that comes out the best, I would say, overall. Possibly even Mr. Burling. But certainly Gerald comes out as someone who's been a positive force in Eva's life. He's given her attention, he's attempted to assist her, and he's been a positive force in her life overall. The only thing that was a sort of downer is that obviously he didn't go the full length of a more serious relationship. But yeah, I would say here the sentiments of Gerald were certainly a real kind of feeling towards Eva. And he's the only one who really treated Eva with anything like any kind of decency. If anything, you might say he treated her with an excess of decency. It was almost like he treated her with an excess of care, which was only perhaps the more painful when he broke things off eventually. So yeah, perhaps there was an excess of care. Perhaps he should have been more discerning. Is it right to get involved with a girl in this position? In this way anyway. Could I potentially help her in a different way? I don't know. But he probably comes off more or less the best out of the bunch, and because he's the only one who's had an actually positive impact on Eva's life in any way, all of the other characters has had more of a negative impact on her. So yeah, with Gerald we're kind of left with, he's one of the young characters, and we're not quite sure where things go for him and also we're not sure where things go for him in his relationship with Sheila as well, because they were supposed to be married and so on, and Sheila's having obviously second thoughts about it after hearing about Gerald's affair, and it kind of remains to be seen what is going to happen between those two. Maybe they have to start over. It seems that Sheila in some way was in a way understanding of the situation, and to some extent, although obviously not happy about it. So it remains to be seen whether, I think she says, it's not the same, we need to start over kind of thing. It remains to be seen whether they will actually have anything going forward or not. So those are the two, should we say, the two young men in the play, and if they're guilty of anything from a sin point of view, Eric would be lust, greed, perhaps. Gerald potentially would be vanity. I think there's a small element of vanity in the sense that he likes that Eva kind of admires him. It's something that makes him feel good. So if there were kind of sins attached to them, it would be perhaps potentially vanity in the case of Gerald, and then maybe more towards lust and greed in the sense of Eric. So yeah, those are the two young men. In the last video, I'm going to take a quick look at Eva Smith herself. May also do a video on the inspector as well. So we'll leave things there for this one.